Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome back, light beings, to another episode of the SoulPod Podcast. And I am so excited today. We're doing a new segment called Everyday Stories of Awakening. And the intention of this segment is to dig into and hear from people who are on the spiritual journey, doing the work, putting in the hours of meditation and breath work. And we want to dive into it. We want to hear from people who are on the journey. And the awakening journey can be at any point. It's constantly evolving. As we've said on the pod before, awakening is a verb. It's a process. And so you could be just getting into your awakening and starting to discover what presence really means for you in your mind, body, and spirit. Or you could be having those big mystical breakthroughs. And so we want to hear from people who are on all spectrums of that process. And so I'm really excited today to be joined by Bianca Taylor, somebody that I love and admire, and I'm so honored is joining us today. And Bianca is an award-winning journalist based in San Francisco. She balances her time spent behind a computer with time spent in the ocean on a yoga mat or on the couch with her super adorable cat. Welcome, Bianca.
Hi, Crystal. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so excited to dig into your process. And I thought maybe we could start with going back in time. And what was Bianca's life like before starting to meditate or do breath work? Maybe you can just take us back and let us know what that was like for you.
Yeah, so I've always been a very physically active person, and I think a lot of movement in my life was always a part of just joy, but also how I managed stress. And as I got older, I found yoga as a form of movement. Like in college, I went to Berkeley, so obviously sort of necessary, had to find a yoga class. And that was kind of my first introduction to mindfulness and integration of breath as a wellness practice, not just the physicality of it. But you know, I, that was probably in 2008 when I did my first yoga class. But I don't think I really understood the benefits of breathing and mindfulness until much later when I actually started doing therapy. I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. And it was pretty clear that my whole life I've been an overachiever. I'm just a high octane person. So I do things to the fullest and I don't really have a medium. And that's propelled me to a lot of really incredible successes that I'm really proud of. But it also meant I just had a lot of my little internal hummingbird was just revving at full speed. And leaving college, figuring out my career path, navigating the world as an adult, it was really hard to not just kind of spiral out. And that's when I started doing therapy and incorporating and just learning actually what mindfulness actually meant, and doing breathing exercises kind of in the exercises in the context of cognitive behavioral therapy, doing more restorative yoga, as opposed to just fitness yoga. And then it wasn't until maybe a few years ago that I started meditating and doing breath work. And I feel like that unlocked a whole new range of introspection and relief that I don't think I necessarily I think it built on things that I had started learning about or experiencing through yoga and therapy. And it kind of primed my experience for like more, I don't know, I like have talked to you about like the body bits, like kind of getting out of your analytical mind and into the body and like having that be the thing that provides relief as opposed to just like
Yeah.
thinking about not being
I think
stressed.
you said something before we recorded that I thought was so great. You're like, we love the analytical mind until we don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's such an interesting way to think about it because it's not like there's necessarily something wrong with our analytical mind. Like we use it. You use it for doing
Right. It's
such
a great
amazing,
tool. Yeah.
yeah, you use it for doing such amazing work in the world. Um, but it can kind of get runaway train on us.
Yeah.
And and that's really, I would love to hear from you if you're open to sharing, like, what is the anxiety experience for you? Is it the runaway train of thought? Is it very physical? Um, Kind of how did that show up for you in your
Yeah.
experience?
I mean, it's certainly managed a lot better now, but like in its prime, it was everything. It was racing thoughts, sort of
Yep.
like catastrophizing, but very physical, shortness of breath. I mean, like upset stomach. I like thought was celiac for 10 years. And it's like, no, you
You're
just
just
need to take a
stressed.
damn breath. Yeah, I mean, just tension in my shoulders, everything. Every
Mm,
part of my body was really afflicted. And again, even though I was an athlete, I wasn't really um, using, I didn't really like, I was very good at like pushing my body through things. And anxiety is also good at pushing through things. And I think one of the really exceptional parts of mindfulness, meditation, breath work is like you are not moving. Like your body, you have to just listen to what's going on inside of you and not up here. Like I had a really sweet acupuncturist who was like, you need to like put your feet on the earth because you're like he's like your feet are cold. You need to like ground your feet into the earth so that you like bring yourself back down because again, in my job, I'm thinking, I'm writing, I'm in my head a lot. I don't ruminate necessarily like I used to, but I don't find that thinking provides a lot of relief. Whereas, like listening to my body and like soothing my body, actually, like I can feel like it changes the physicality of how I'm experiencing stress and relaxes me.
yeah, I think so many people, myself included, could relate to this kind of high achiever
Yeah,
perspective, which is, and it may not even be high achiever, it's just this idea of like, oh, I can just push through this.
yeah. I mean, we're the
Um,
era of girl boss.
yeah.
Like also if you
Yeah.
rest, like, are you being lazy? Like,
Hmm.
someone's going to snap up what you're going after, you
Right.
know?
There's some not so great social cultural
Yeah.
messages that were being given, and certainly it's an act of revolution, I think, in some ways, to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to push through this. I'm going to feel through this. I'm going
Yeah.
to get out of here in the craziness that's going on and see if I can start to find that space between the thoughts, come down into my heart space. I mean, that's such a powerful practice, um, an outlook, I think, too, instead of like, okay, I'm just going to power through this. And we know some people, maybe my husband, that's very good
Yeah.
at powering through things. And it works. I mean, that's the thing. It
Yeah.
works on some level. And and I think sometimes, especially in the spiritual kind of conversation, we can get the feeling that, we're saying just like sit back and don't do anything and like
Right.
surrender. And it's like not exactly. It's more so this finding your inner center and then doing the action. And so that the action or the pushing forward that you're doing in certain areas of your life is very aligned and conscious and
Yeah. I mean,
grounded. So it's
I
yeah.
I feel like I have this just like visual or and also just like we're such planners, right? Like we're doing a million things, we're multitasking. And if you're thinking about what's gonna happen in the future, but you're also like ruminating on the past, you actually like don't have any of the information you need to like make lunch or like are you hungry? Like what do you need to do to like tend to your body or like what actually is the most important thing that you should be doing right now. So I feel like just stopping and taking a breath. Just like what is actually happening right now? It's amazing how often I am not actually thinking about what's happening right now.
Presence. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We're time
yeah.
traveling in our minds.
Yeah, and it's really
Mm.
tiring. Like it's actually so exhausting to have your brain on all the time. And I've noticed even just like if I like am taking a break, but I'm sitting on my phone or I'm like, distracted or my mind is still working, I don't feel refreshed. I don't feel
Mm.
restored. So it's like, I mean, I think that's the beauty of like the short meditations is like you can in 5 minutes actually feel like you've really like sloughed off a lot of shit you didn't need.
Yeah. I think that's a powerful reminder that not meditating or not having some sort of process where you can come back to yourself, it can exhaust you. Anxiety and high stress, and not making that time for yourself. A lot of times I hear from people, and I understand why, just them saying, I don't have time for meditation. I don't have time to do, a morning practice and or an evening practice. And I found that interesting. I do understand it can be hard to build that habit. I would love to hear from you how you've kind of built your habit. Um, but to your point, when you do it, it's like, what are you getting out of this? You're getting restoration. You're
Yeah.
getting nervous system balancing.
Yeah.
Um, so I no longer view it as personally as like a nice to have to meditate. I'm like, this is a need to have. Like, I need to find my center. And there's a lot of other reasons why I meditate, but from a very base level, to your point, it's restorative. Like, it's actually restorative. So I would love to hear, you started in yoga, you got exposed through movement, which I think a lot of people can relate to is starting through yoga and having those moments of conscious breathing and maybe some moments of meditation. So how did it evolve for you from there? What were your kind of first few moments of like, oh, something's shifting for me, something's changing?
I think I did my first breathwork class before like officially started a meditation practice. And that breathwork class just like ripped me open. I mean, I was like
Mm.
sobbing. It
Was
was
it the
just
laying
like,
down, like
yes. Yeah,
yes,
it was like the
okay,
laying
yeah.
down and the journaling. And I was like, what is happening? Like I consider myself super in touch with I consider myself very introspective and very like in touch with my emotions. And there was just this shit pouring out of me. And it was like, I mean, it did feel good, but it was just very intense. It was really intense. And I was like, okay, yeah, something is going on here. And what's cool about that experience was that the intensity was not like a scary intensity. It was like the thing that was making me sob was that like you're safe. Like you're actually so safe and like you're exactly where you need to be. And it's like and that's like coming from inside of me, right? Like I think that's that's the thing that I mean, and I'll be honest, like my practice is like I don't think I would like to have more of a routine. It's not super I've gone through phases where I've like been doing it every day, like doing my soul pod journey, and then I'll go through months where I don't do it. But the thing that draws me
Which
to
is
it,
which is totally okay too.
okay,
I think, yeah, no
dare
worries.
I
No
say,
no no
I
judgment
know.
here.
Well, and also like it was something you say in the beginning of the practice, which I really like, is like it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. And I think that overachieving brain, that's hard to turn off, even in things like all you have to do is find 15 minutes to sit down. It's like, well, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all, which is
Ex Yeah,
a
doesn't
whole
serve you.
other thing,
Yeah.
right? But the thing that I love about the idea of meditation and like the actual practice of it is like all you need is yourself. Like I've all of this wisdom that I've gained, like all of like the way that I'm able to self-soothe when I turn my brain off is crazy. Like it's actually so much more effective than going for a run or like things that maybe I would have turned to in the past before I had these tools. And there are some particular moments that have been really powerful to me that have kind of occurred through therapy and meditation. But this idea of like um, self compassion in the form of like seeing your younger self, like literally visualizing. And when I first did this with my therapist, I was like, okay, there's a picture that I remember like in my room at home and I'm like in this little yellow dress and I've got like a cute little like ponytail and it's just like I kind of remember that snapshot. And so I'll picture myself like as this little girl in the yellow dress, like holding my hand, present day and like kind of looking up to me and being super proud or like calming myself and like I think it's been like a really cool way of recognizing how far I've come and how like my little self is like not at all seeing the faults or the flaws that I do. Like
Mm.
she's so stoked and I forget which journey it was, but there was a and maybe it occurs on a couple, but like you do some visualizations in the soul pod where it's like your younger self is sitting next to you and it's just crazy because like as you articulate it, it sounds kind of insane. But it's really, I don't know, it's really, I think because I had such a clear visual, like literally I could see this younger self and I knew how proud she was and is. It's like that, and then realizing that that is still me. It's just, it's like you can say, and I did, I've been in there, I was in therapy for like 10 years. It's like you can tell yourself these things, but until you feel them, it's like that's when it really like locks in. And I feel like I've had that moment and it's never left me, you know?
Oh, that's so, oh, I got chills. Yeah, that's so juicy. Um, you touched on a few things there that I think are really powerful. And it's so cool that you've had those experiences because you, like what you're saying is it's coming from like a mental concept and it's coming into a feeling experience.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that never, to your point, like when that's happened to me, it really does never leave you. It's a instantaneous transformation, realization. Um, in the spiritual world, we talk about self-realization, and I think the inner child work that you're talking about, which is not crazy, by the way, this is
I guess
like,
there's a name for it. Yeah.
yeah, no, which is it's very powerful work, um, on a few different levels, and you could think of it as, mentally and subconsciously, you could think about we carry those old emotions and those old experiences from our entire life. And sometimes those experiences and those emotions aren't getting a voice. And when you do that work, you're like you're giving not only your present day self that opportunity to bear witness to like young Bianca is so powerful, but young Bianca bearing witness to where you are now.
Yeah.
And if you want to get really like trippy with it, another thing that I think about is that in meditation, when we start to enter those higher levels of consciousness, I think this is a possibility. I'll just say it's a possibility. Um, that when you do this kind of work, and it's almost like with past lives, sometimes you're moving your consciousness outside of space and time, potentially. And so you're traveling to these other versions of yourself. And it could be the case that you're actually traveling and meeting another version of yourself. If time is a construct, which we think that it is, then that could be a possibility. And that makes it even more interesting and juicy to think like, what if this really is a situation where you're conversing on some level of consciousness with your younger self across space and time? And you can do that in all kinds of different ways. And you can start to potentially, this way I kind of think about it, is go into those time periods in your life and talk to 25-year-old Crystal or potentially into the future as well. What does future Bianca feel like? And so yeah, it's a really cool practice. So I love that you've had that experience. Are there any other experiences in meditation or breath work that really kind of turned a corner for you?
When I was doing the SoulPod journey more consistently, it was really cool to feel my body looking forward to it. Because I will say, like, it's wild. And like, I don't know why is there resistance? Like, I know it's good for me. Like, I know that I get something out of it and I enjoy doing it. But if I'm not in the habit, I feel this resistance, which is
Oh yeah.
so weird because it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's like, I don't want to, like, I don't need to, so I don't want to. It's really interesting. And I'm like trying to not be critical because I think that I don't want to force myself to do anything. But it is the kind
Right.
of thing where it's like, yeah, this is actually a treat. Like to get to
Mm.
sit down for
Oh my
15
gosh.
minutes,
Yeah.
like
You
that's a
bring up such
treat.
a I think this will be very relatable for many people listening, which is, yeah, what you're talking about is the resistance to the practice, which on some level of mind, you're like, why am I making this so hard on myself?
So hard. It's like if I spent all the minutes thinking about how I should be meditating, but aren't
Mm.
going to actually meditating.
Something special happens when we step away from the noise of everyday life and into a space of amplified presence and deep devotion to our spiritual growth. A space where we're seen, supported, and reminded of the light within us. That is exactly what you'll have the chance to do on our Soul Pod retreat. We are so excited to invite you on this 4-day immersion in Joshua Tree, California, August 28th through 31st, specifically designed to illuminate your path and harness the light within. From guided meditations under the stars to transformative breathwork journeys, this is more than a retreat. It's a portal into the next level of you. You'll be held in a sacred container with like-minded souls, moving from the earthly into the mystical, expanding your intuition, deepening into your purpose, and activating your true energetic potential. If you're ready to dive into the mystical with us, join Crystal, myself, and the amazing SoulPod team in the desert, under the stars, in the stillness, and beyond the veil. Head to www.soulpodapp.com/retreat to learn more and book your alignment call. Spaces are limited to just 12 light beings for this journey. So if you feel the call, listen.
I think on one level, I don't like to tell people you should be meditating because then there's this shame that can come in, and then you have to also give yourself a lot of grace. And I really do believe that meditation and those levels of consciousness are calling to you more loudly during certain points in your life than others. And and you can listen to the call or not. Um, but I like to tell people to give themselves a lot of grace because the stress of like, oh, I haven't been meditating for this past month
Yeah.
is
Then it
it doesn't
becomes a
do
chore.
anybody. Yeah, it becomes a chore.
We like to avoid chores, and
Yeah.
yeah, but it is something that I've like been thinking about, recently is like, especially in this time of like, I have a lot of stress at my job. There's a lot of like
Hmm.
general anxiety
I can't imagine
in the
why.
air. And
Yeah.
like we talked about this before, but like one of the things I sort of decided and realized was like part of how I'm going to manage that stress, how I want to manage it is like a focus on the body, is a
Hmm.
focus on like taking care of my body through like exercise when it feels good, like rest, like naps and rest and sleep.
We
And
love naps.
yeah,
Yeah.
huge napper. And like meditation and massage, like physical practices to give the thinking mind a break because otherwise it just like the burnout is so real. And
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
tending for me tending to my body, and when I meditate, the way I get out of my head is I really have to think about my body. Like I really have to consciously focus like my sight somewhere, right? Like my third eye, or I have to think about my pelvis. I have to really think about my body. And that's when my mind can turn off. It's hard for me to even entertain the idea of like, there might be a thought, but don't follow it. I'm like, nope, can't.
Not
Brain
there
doesn't
yet.
exist, like go straight into body. But like, I don't know, for you, do you feel like you meditate with your mind on still?
That's a good question. I mean, I think just to go back to the point that you made that you want your body, and you have experienced this a few times where you start to crave the meditation when we're talking about resistance. Another reason you can be experiencing resistance um, is the ego. So
Oh my
the
God.
the chattery sense of self,
Yes.
the ego, I think a lot of people maybe don't realize this, but the ego doesn't like meditation.
No, I think my ego doesn't want to feel like she needs it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll come up with all kinds of stories. Um, because and it makes sense, and you can make friends with your ego because you're like it the ego is the accumulation of thoughts and beliefs that define who it is that you are. And meditation starts to threaten that structure. So you can be like, "Oh, I totally get why my ego would not want me to sit down and move into the higher mind because it's not the higher mind." So it's makes sense that the ego is a little prickly about it, but I do think that you can get to a point in meditation where your body craves it, where you wake up and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get into my practice." That's how I feel a good portion of the time, not all the time. I still have my moments where my body's and my ego is like, "No, thank you. Um, there's better things for you to do. You don't have the time. We'll just go on a walk instead." And sometimes the walk is good. Sometimes I'm not saying like the movement, the yoga, all of that is very, very helpful. But there's something unique about meditation and getting quiet with your own mind.
I will say I feel like on the I love this idea of like the ego because like I just recognize that. So I see her, I know her, like she's a big part of like my success, right? Is like
Yeah,
this
same.
confidence, this like
Yeah.
real like this is who I am and no one can change that. And yeah, like meditation can bring up some sort of destabilizing things and you also don't know what's going to happen. I think that's like whereas if I go to an exercise class, it's like I'll go through these things, I know my muscles will feel sore,
Yeah.
but I don't always know how I will feel at the end of a meditative session. And that I think is
Mm.
like because sometimes it's just some nice breathing, honestly, and sometimes it feels a little more powerful, and sometimes it's really hard. And I think my ego particularly is resistant to not knowing the outcome at the beginning.
Ooh. This is really, that's such a good point because I still experience that even after meditating every day for forever.
Yeah, it's like you still get surprised at the
I
stuff that,
still
yeah,
I'm always surprised.
yeah.
I'm quite literally always surprised. And that's the relationship with the unknown, which you're totally right, is kind of inherent with meditation in this spiritual journey, is dancing with the unknown, which is the mystical, the higher planes of consciousness. And so it's unpredictable. We literally can't say what's going to be the outcome of your meditation. In general, we know like physiologically we can
Right.
say in general your nervous system is going to s- switch down into parasympathetic. That's also not always true. Sometimes you get switched up into a sympathetic response because you're having this big um, expansion and it's not at all calm. So I think this will be very relatable for people. Sometimes you come out of meditation, you're like, well, that was a battle.
Yeah, you're
Like,
like, I actually feel a little
that
worn
was
down.
really hard. And then on those days, the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
important thing is that to remember that you did make progress. You did, on some level, you became, because the battle was about something. So you became, even if like a little bit more aware of something inside of you. It might not have come to like a full resolution, but, and then there's other times where you drop in and you have the spaciousness or you have this mystical experience, a realization or an insight that you didn't have before. And I mean, those are the moments where, okay, savor it, write it in your journal, write it all in your journal, but like extra, like come back to those really good meditations to remind yourself that that's what it's about. But it, to your point, it is not. I love having that open mind when you go into meditations, that curiosity, because I think there's two kind of ingredients to really going deep into your spiritual journey. One is the curiosity and the openness, and the second one is courage, because it can also get, destabilizing to your point. You're facing elements of self that you may not have seen before because you're turning up the dial. But yeah, and to your previous question about the body versus the mind, that's
Mhm.
also why we do breath work before meditation in SoulPod. There's a reason for that, because it is helpful to first give the analytical mind something to latch onto, and the inner sensing that you're talking about, focusing on the third eye point or a certain energy center or a certain area of the body can be really helpful to help let some of those circular, repetitive thoughts start to die down. And then, if it's accessible for you, to release the focus. That's kind of how I like to operate. Start with some sort of internal focus, and then at some point release it and move into this, I call it unfocused expansion, which is just letting your mind, and there's levels of mind, self, ego, and higher mind. It's not like a you're in one or the other. It's like you're moving along that
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
And so the unfocused expansion kind of allows you to experiment with that. And some days it's accessible and some days it's not. But I do like to practice seeing how far my mind cannot attach to something.
Instead of like this resistance to like, well, I don't know what's going to happen and I don't really want to do it. It's like, this is a surprise. Like, I get to be surprised. I feel like that could really change some shit for me. It's like, no, I for sure don't know what's going to happen, but that's part of the treat. Like,
That's
that's
part of the
part of
treat.
the, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, I don't know what's going to be, what I'm going to find there.
I like that. That's part of the treat is the unknown.
Yeah. Oh, and something that I just so appreciate about like the way that you frame all of this is how much courage it does take and how hard it can be. And like knowing you and like how much of your like life you have dedicated to this practice and these concepts and knowing that it's still hard for you and it still takes courage to do is just very validating because I feel like especially in the wellness world there can be a lot of like posturing that like it's so easy to just have a green juice every day and like float off the ground and never be stressed and I think like one of the one of the things that I really like about having learned how to meditate and now that it's like kind of in my wheelhouse of things, it's like I even if I'm not literally meditating, I think about meditation a lot. Like I think about
What do you think about when you're not meditating?
when I go on walks, I try to like use my phone less. Even though I'm not like sitting in sort of stillness, I'm I feel like I'm incorporating aspects of meditation or things that I think about during meditation or just like I don't know, kind of like a stillness of mind and an openness in a way that I associate with a meditation
Mm, I
practice.
love that. It's not cheating. Actually, it's
As long as I get an A on the test, I
Yeah.
am please just tell me I'm doing everything perfectly.
Oh, you have an A plus even. Oh my gosh, the Virgo in me also loves that. I'm like, can you just give me a gold star?
Yeah.
Um, so actually it's not only I love that you brought this up. It's not only not cheating, it's actually an evolution of meditation in the practice because this is what I have been really focused on in the last few years is okay, I went into this altered state of consciousness. I had a mystical experience or it was really hard and I cried in my meditation, which I'm also a big fan of. Feel your emotions in meditation. Don't get stoic about it. Like let it move. It's energy that wants to move. And I was like, but then I get up off my cushion and I've lost it. Like how can I sustain these states in my waking life? And that's what we can also call mindfulness, that foundational practice of just becoming more aware off the cushion. But I think it's going to go even further than that, which is like, can you take those moments of expansion and where you're at, how you're feeling into waking life? And that's why right now we're developing walking meditations because I think it's a really
Ooh.
powerful practice to practice with your eyes open, to see if you can access that level of awareness when you're not on the cushion. And so I think that's a big evolution of the practice. And so, yeah, I'm excited that that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah, and I feel like I will credit that to yoga because I feel like in yoga there a lot of what they talk about is how like this is a practice of yes, shapes and poses, but and I will preface like I'm not doing like I guess traditional yoga, but I'm doing sort of like the westernized version. But they do in many of the classes I take, they do stress like this is a practice for you off your mat. It's like the way that you like can breathe through stress and regulate your body in times of physical duress or like calm your really negative thinking like that. You're doing that here so that you can do it outside. Um, and so I feel like that's kind of the lessons that I've gained from yoga are like it's really less about what your body is doing and how you are responding to what your body is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a little bit more awareness and presence in your movement, in your day. I think it's really powerful. Were there any, we've talked a little bit about your challenges on the journey of meditation and breath work. Are there any other challenges that you've encountered?
So, I mean, to like break it down into logistics, like you mentioned, like people say they don't have time. Um, I definitely do have time. And what I haven't figured
We all
out,
we all do
I
technically.
know, it's like when my mom says she doesn't have time for therapy, I'm like, well, surely.
Surely there's some time there.
Um, but yeah, like I have practiced meditating kind of like in the morning, in the afternoon, and before I go to bed. And time wise, before I go to bed makes the most sense logistically, but I
Mm,
don't like the experience as much because um I feel distracted, I feel sleepy, I feel like I'm actually not in the most receptive place for it. And conversely, when I've meditated in the morning, even though it's like less convenient for me because I'm not a morning person and I'm usually in a rush, that's actually when I get the best. Like I can feel the difference. Um I feel like my whole day is different. I feel like I've just set myself off on a really good like it's kind of incredible, but again, I haven't prioritized making it a part of my morning routine, like waking up 15 minutes earlier or whatever. But I know it's possible. Um, and in the middle of the day is tough because it's very easy to just be like, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. And then it's 9 p.m. and you just kind of want to go to bed. So I feel like that's something that I'm excited to uh perhaps challenge myself with or invite myself if I was using Crystal's word, it's invite myself into is like what yeah, like could I just wake up 15 minutes earlier and do this and see like have a feeling I would like it. You know what I mean? I have a feeling that it wouldn't feel necessarily like a chore the way that it sometimes does at the end of the day when I'm like, okay, like I have to do this before I go to bed.
Right. Yeah, I think there's something especially powerful about morning practice. And that's why you hear so many people say, even the yogis, they would practice around 4:30 in the morning, before the world's kind of waking up. There's a belief there that that time is especially potent for meditation and this kind of inner exploration. Um, for some periods of time, I've managed to do that, but like it's pretty hard to
Yeah.
get up at 4:30.
Certainly.
And it's 6:30. But there is something I have noticed as far as time of day. First of all, it's always a good thing whenever you can find. But I think you hit on it when you said it when you do it in the morning, when you meditate in the morning, it does change your day in some way. I've noticed days that I meditate or I have a pretty deep practice versus days that I don't, there's a palpable difference in my day. And I think personally that it's both, that time to get acquainted with my mind and my inner world, but I also think it's because you've accessed a higher level of consciousness at the very beginning of your day. And so that, if you want to call it vibration, frequency, whatever you want to call it, it's going to follow you. You're now on that kind of level, if you will. And so the day just kind of lines up in a different way. So I'm a big fan of morning practice for sure. And I like to think of morning practice as like this is my foundation. Evening practice I think of as like this is my exploration. Like I'll do more edgy explorations in the evening. Um, I'll do like maybe a different practice or try something new or the evening's kind of my play space. And the days that I do both are pretty awesome.
Those are the days
Then
you
you go to
levitate.
I levitate. I mean, I've been telling people, I'm like, am I
I
starting to
know.
levitate? I think it's happening. Uh, yeah. Any other, I mean, what about the community too for you? Sometimes when you're on this journey and you're awakening, do you have community that you tend to connect with on this, or is it a pretty individual experience
Hmm.
for you?
I feel like it's actually a pretty individual experience. Aside from I get to talk to you,
Anytime.
who's yes, like both as a friend, as someone who is interested in these things, and also as someone who I like can learn from. Like you've like recommended some books to me, and it's fun because I feel like you and this isn't like a like oh I'm so far behind, but like it's kind of like I'm just starting this thing out, and you're like yeah, like that is fun and exciting. It's like I'm kind of I can come to you and be like, "Oh my God, this thing happened," or like, "This is hard." And you're like, "Yeah, I've been there." So it's nice to like, yeah, just like have someone as knowledgeable as you and who's just genuinely so excited about it. Like you're not doing it because you should, right? Like you're doing it
Mm,
because you love it and it's fun to talk about with you. But otherwise it's pretty solo and I think honestly for me that's good because I have a tendency to compare myself and Um, I'm competitive. I love group fitness classes. Like like I actually think part of some of that healing nature of it is that I hold myself accountable. I reap the benefits. I don't know what anyone else is doing or when anyone else is doing it. Um, and so that's yeah, it'd be interesting. Um, I don't really have other friends who are that into spirituality. Funnily enough. Like I have yoga friends, but they're not really spiritual yoga friends. They're kind of like fitness yoga friends. Like maybe the only and that's like neither here. It's not a bad thing, but like
no, no, no.
I don't really have a ton of people that I talk about this with because I'm also I feel like because I'm competitive, like I don't want to be the girl at the party talking about how she meditates.
I
Unless
am.
I'm, no, I know. That's what I'm
No, I'm
saying. Like,
kidding. I'm
unless I'm
kidding.
with you, and
No.
then it's like we actually can have a conversation as opposed to feeling like I'm bragging. Because I do feel like
Right, right.
there can be like a little bit of like, well, I meditate. And it's like that doesn't make you a
Yes.
good person, actually.
No, no. And that's the ego coming in. And
Yeah.
there is such thing as there's ego for everything, but the spiritual ego is also a thing, which is you start to expand, um, gain more inner power, maybe external power, however you want to look at that. And then your ego can get pretty activated, and you're like, oh, what does this mean for my sense of self and my identity? And as you continue on that journey for the people that it might feel that way, or it impacts you and feels like that's what they're indicating, um, is that's another thing you have to release attachment to, is this sense of self as being like a better person because you're spiritual, which is not the case. So yeah, yeah,
And that there's no like endpoint to it too. Like this is a thing
exactly.
that you just do for the rest of your life. Um
In many lifetimes. And
and
even
many
when you maybe evolve from this
exactly.
planetary realm, like it continues.
Uh,
It's awakening is a process that I think evolves even beyond this realm. So that it really truly doesn't end. You're always expanding because the universe is expanding.
and that's actually
So
maybe a good thing for me to remember too is like um I can't win, so I can't
mm,
lose.
ex-
Like I'm not gonna like hit
exactly.
200 meditations and like I don't know everything that
Gold,
there is to know.
know
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the challenges to meditation are they speak to just like larger challenges with like, perfectionism and needing to like get something tangible or like, capitalist culture of like, well, if you're are you being productive? Like what exactly are you getting out of that 15 minutes? And I feel like meditation, as I am practicing and understanding it, is like in direct opposition to all that. So part of the grace is like it takes time to unlearn those things too.
Yeah. A lot of a good amount of time. And you have to have patience with yourself through that because there's a lot of deprogramming socially, culturally, internally. Like it's a lot. So it's a infinite onion. There's always another layer,
Ooh,
you
I
know?
like Infinite Onion would be a good book
It's fun,
title for
right?
you.
Infinite onion. Well, Bianca, thank you so much for today. This has been really fun for me. And I think we've hit on some very relatable topics that I think will help people that are beginning their journey, evolving on their journey, and it's such a reminder. And that's why we wanted to do these episodes is to really dig into day to day, what is this path to awakening like? Where is it challenging? Um, what are we can workshop how to break through certain things and also celebrate the mystical and the breakthroughs. So thank you so much. But I do have a few um, call them what rapid fire questions for you.
Ooh, okay.
So we've got a couple of these, and so whatever comes up for you. What is one belief that you no longer believe?
There's something wrong with me.
Mm, love that. What what do you believe consciousness is?
Oh my God. Sort of a light, light.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like that. Yes. What is source, God, or oneness to you?
This idea that there's no separation between anything.
Mm,
I might
such
have
a good
learned that
answer.
from you.
I
That
was
may
like, why
be
do I
it.
like that so much?
Inspired by Crystal.
That's beautiful. It's 100 years in the future. What do you hope for humanity?
Um, you know, I hope that that we're all just a little less upset with the decisions that the other person has made and we have found a way to live a little more harmoniously with everything, each other and the
Mm,
planet and the animals, and yeah, a little more harmony.
I love that. Harmony. Great way to end the podcast. Thank you, Bianca,
Thanks,
for
Crystal.
joining me in the Soul Pod universe. And until next time, light beings, have a good one. Thank you for journeying with us today, light being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.